Hello everyone. This is 26th of March 2020 and I'm recording this lecture for the SEM 2 honor student. I hope you all are safe and of course in your home, because as you know we are all home quarantined right now till April 15th because of COVID-19. But anyway, I'll have to conduct some of these classes online and communicate with you through Google Classroom, because as you can understand, when the college reopens, we'll have very little time to actually complete your syllabus before your semesters. So I will continue with CC4 Chaucer's Wife of Bath's Prologue, which I was actually doing in class before the college closed down. And for the first lecture through Google Classroom, this online lecture, I will want to do a small recap about the first 5 sections, that is roughly around lines 1 to 140, before I proceed with something new. So we will do a small recap about the part of Wife of Bath's Prologue that we have already covered. So first things first, as you might have noticed that I have already uploaded 2 PDFs in Google Classroom where you all are supposedly there. The first one is about the background of the age of transition, that is the 14th century or the age of Chaucer, the social and intellectual background. This I had already completed in class, but I have uploaded the PDF. There are the details that I have told in class. And the second PDF which I uploaded recently was about a general overview of the Canterbury Tales. Why Canterbury Tales as a work of English literature has its special significance, about the Middle English language, how it developed, how it represented a cross section. It's rather a cross section of all the sections of society. This again kind of takes us back to the social and intellectual background of the age of transition, because as I was doing in class, the thing about the Black Death, which was a bubonic plague, and how it resulted in the rise of the new middle class. And Chaucer's Canterbury Tales, because it represents all sections of the society, it's kind of a cross section of all the sections of the society. It actually talks about all these classes. The class representation is one of the most significant reason why Canterbury Tales still remains so very relevant today. It also acts as a historical document, so this becomes very significant. The second part of that PDF was an overview about the Wife of Bath's Prologue, because as I have told you in that PDF that representation of women characters were actually very less. So with Wife of Bath, Chaucer gives us a kind of flesh and blood woman character, so much so that it becomes a kind of a first autobiography of a woman. So that is also very important. And after that part about the Wife of Bath's Prologue, I have also given you, I think, some points. Those are the perspectives or the issues through which we will try to study this Wife of Bath's Prologue as a whole. And many important social, cultural and historical and gender factors that comes up while we study the Wife of Bath's Prologue. So this this online video lecture is mostly the recap about the first 5 parts that we have already studied. So we have studied the first 5 sections of Wife of Bath. The first is the section 1, that is the introduction of the first part, the introduction, which is roughly lines 1 to line 1 to 34. And here you have the first thing you have, that there is this experience versus authority that wife of Bath tells us about. And we are introduced to the character wife of Bath, and we know that she has 5 husbands, and that is from where her experience comes from. And for experience, we are talking about experience of marriage and sexuality, and that is one important issue again of wife of Bath, that it gives us a lot of information about the medieval ideas of marriage and sexuality, especially for women of that contemporary age. So, wife of Bath, as we know, she has 5 husbands, so she is all experienced in marriage and sexuality, and she believes that when it comes to marriage and the problems and the blessings of marriage, experience always plays a more important role than authority. And authority, at least here in the first section, is the religious authority or the church. And we will see how these two, experience in marriage and sexuality, plays a kind of antagonism with the religious authority. And we have that from the very first section itself, because there are many biblical references that wife of Bath brings about while discussing this experience versus authority thing. And she kind of looks for religious validation of the fact that she has been married 5 times. And she brings up some biblical references, like this biblical command of go forth and multiply, which is very contradictory to the actual contradictory to the actual statement. The statement is actually very contradictory to the contemporary religious or social view of celibacy, because on one side the church is asking, or rather promoting, this view of celibacy and virginity to be the purest form of human existence, and on the other hand the Bible says go forth and multiply. So as you can understand, there is a contradiction between the statements and the present religious sentiments of that age. Next up, we go to the second section, which is wife of Bath's opinions about marriage and virginity. And the first thing she does here is that she brings King Solomon's experiences, King Solomon's lives into question. And she tells that King Solomon had many wives. And King Solomon, historically, as we know, he had 700 wives. And wife of Bath says that his experiences with his wife must be very important to him. And wife of Bath says, rather she craves, that she has half the number of husbands that Solomon had wives. And she says that chastity that is being promoted by the church is not so important to her. She rather craves for multiple experiences of marriage, and sex is more important to her. And multiple experiences, she said that they make one perfect. And here in this section, the second part of this section, the second section, we also realize that she has actually adequate knowledge of the Bible and other religious texts, because in the first section, if you remember, she has already referred to Christ and his rebuke to the Samaritan woman who had married many number of times. And now in the second section, she kind of invokes St. Paul's command that it is better to marry than to burn. Saint Paul's suggestions of chastity, and she goes about and says that what Saint Paul has said, actually they were actually suggestions and not orders. Saint Paul has not ordered everyone to remain virgin forever. The next up, we have the third section, which is about Saint Paul's virginity itself. And wife of Bath tells that St. Paul's was a virgin, but St. Paul's never ordered everyone to be a virgin like him, and everyone doesn't really need to be celibate and virgin like St. Paul's. That is only for people who pursue that religious purity. And in that section, she also says that she talks about Saint Paul's belief that virginity somewhere was better than marriage, and virginity or celibacy, it is kind of a higher state of life, the purest form of existence that human can have. So this again brings us to another issue that I have discussed in that PDF which I uploaded, the religion kind of associating sex with sin, and religion kind of acting as an antagonist rather to marriage and sex. And this also brings us to another point, that religion promoting celibacy, religion promoting virginity, religion giving dictums about marriage, which shouldn't be, because these things about celibacy, about virginity, about marriage, this should come down as personal choices. This is in the domain of the secular. This is not something that should be in the domain of religion. It's not a religious topic. But religion in Chaucer's age, trying to control these personal choices and trying to also have a hold on society with controlling their choices. So this is another issue that comes up from our third section. We move on. To section 4, which is where wife of Bath talks about virginity in general, and she says that she has no real complaints against people following celibacy, people who are virgins. And there is a line that clean in body and ghost, like people who are celibates, people who are virgins, both their souls and their bodies are pure. Now, wife of Bath says that I don't have a problem with people practicing celibacy, or people who want to remain virgins all through their lives. She accepts this purity. She accepts that state of being celibate and virgin is pure existence, but she doesn't really want to practice it, and she cannot, because she already have had 5 husbands. She is now a middle-aged woman. And in that section there is also this household imagery, and we have 2 elements, one is gold and the other being wooden. And in medieval culture, these two has very different significance. Gold actually refers to this state of celibacy, the state of virginity, a kind of purity or chastity. This gold is always associated with chastity, while wood is kind of considered as a base material, which is really about utility, and wood is associated more with dishonor and a physical pleasure like lust. But wife of Bath argues that if all the utensils in a household are gold, there is very little utility, because gold utensils are something that is always preserved, while the wooden ones, the wooden vessels, as it says, they are used every day. So uh, gold actually refers to a body that has never been used, a body that is preserved, and necessarily preserved without sex, a body that is celibate, while wood is a body that has been used for sex, the body that has some utility. And in the next section of this part, and she says that God has made us all for different purposes, like she says, sundry ways, and not everyone will live the same life. Some people will live the life of chastity, while some other people will live the life of marriage and domesticity. And she also refers to Christ in this way. And she says that Christ never said that everyone should donate everything to the poor, and that practice of Christ, that is only for people who will follow the life of perfection. And it's not that everyone will donate everything to the poor, that it doesn't work that way. Christ's lessons are only for people who will live that life of perfection, while she says that she has no intentions of living a life of chastity, because she is already married 5 times and looking for her 6th husband. What is important here also, that religion, she continuously refers to religious texts. She refers to Christ, she refers to Bible, she refers to St. Paul's, and she brings in all this religious and biblical reference. What is important for us is to understand that religion in Chaucer's age was really male dominated enterprise, and it is kind of the males which were in powerful positions of the church. For a woman to be so knowledgeable about religion, to be knowledgeable about the Bible, and we know that she is not actually speaking in vacuum, because she is bringing in hard facts, hard references that are actually from the Bible. And being a woman of this age and knowing Bible and knowing other religious texts so well that she can actually afford to argue with her fellow travelers, who are mostly men, is also a thing that we should note. And this theme about a women being so knowledgeable in religious texts and religious pursuits is something we are going to deal with in the later sections of the text. Now we move on to section 5, which is the purpose of the genitals, and this is the last section that we have completed in class. The last day we did wife of bath in class, and there is a subtle shift here, because till section 1 to section 4 she was continuously bringing in this religious references to actually seek a sort of validation for her all 5 marriages. And from this section onwards, from religion, she now turns to human biology to actually support her argument. And she questions that why were genitals given by God. And we are continuing with this previous theme, that about bodies which are utilized and sex as a sin. And in this linearity, she asked that why were genitals given by God? Are they just for excretion and reproduction, which are the two, when one is necessity and other is duty? Because this is a medieval idea about sex, that it is only for reproduction, which is a duty you have to do as a Christian, to actually, multiply your religion, multiply the members of your religion. Or are the genitals given by God so that we can just differentiate between a male body or a female body? And she asked that, is it only that, or is it also for sexual pleasure? And she says to her fellow pilgrims that we know that it is for both, and this is the conclusion that she comes to, that it is not only for necessity and duty, it is not only for sexual pleasure, but it is for both. And in that section 5, she also says that man shall pay unto his wife his debt, and this is the debt of marriage. This is about the sexual reception, and with this will come to a medieval belief. And she says that when the wife offers herself, rather offers her body to the husband, how will the husband accept that gift of the wife's body without the use of his genitals? That is referred to as the blessed instrument, as if coming from God itself. And this brings us also to a medieval belief that wife should always be submissive in sex and offer her body to the husband whenever he demands to. And this also brings us to another issue of our text, that is the gender politics. We'll talk about it in the other sections. I have already pointed to it in the introduction classes and also the PDFs that I have uploaded in Google Classroom. So these are the 5 sections that we have already completed. I was trying to give you a small recap about how things were, and from next online class onwards we will proceed with the parts of the text that are yet to that we are yet to complete. The very next section is about how a husband should pay his wife. We will continue from this section, which is line 141 onwards. So before I upload the next lecture, the next online lecture in Google Classroom, I really expect you to at least read this section. If you still don't have the text, I have already uploaded the text too in Google Classroom. If you have the text, if you read the text, you'll see that beside the Old English version of this text, the text that I have uploaded also has this modern spelling version, which will be easier for you to understand. So at least read this section, lines 141 to 168. That is the section 6, I think. So it is going to be easier for me to actually explain you that section if you read it before. So that's all for today. I will upload another lecture soon. Till then, be safe. Thank you.